The topic really is reporting from an Amazon agency perspective. It's such a critical topic, and yet it's still full of a lot of challenges, a lot of friction. And today we work with, over 100 agencies attacking and solving these problems. And I think today's session is really more about sharing all the things we have observed, all the mistakes not to make, and how to really think about reporting analytics that just goes a little bit beyond it being just an operational need that you have to deal with. Okay. Again, why am I doing this topic? There's a kind of high level, 2 to 3 reasons. One, if you've been in the space, the Amazon space, and you've watched the last 2 to 3 years, there's been a real explosion of data in terms of what Amazon is sharing. We went from having MWS APIs for Seller Central and then sponsored ads and DSP to now you've got selling partner API, you've got APIs for vendor data, you've got hourly data, you've got Amazon Marketing Cloud, you've got Amazon attribution. It just does not stop. And yet, this is point number 2 here. For a lot of advertisers, there's a lot of blind spots around understanding channel performance, understanding why their product is doing well versus not doing well, right? Because you've got so many factors that influence a product's performance at the same time. And I'll talk about this more later in the presentation. And that's where kind of reporting analytics comes, and it's very critical. And from an agency perspective, there is a need for that for internal use and internal teams. And there's also a need to expose that to some of your clients. But there's just so much friction in all of that, right? This is why, I wanted to, and we've been helping agencies for the last 3-4 years, and in particular over the last 2 years around data and analytics and reporting. Prior to that, we were focused primarily on advertising management. And so there's a lot of things we have observed. And also, you may not know this, but 2 things I want to call out about my background and Intentwise background. Before we became a SaaS platform, we were actually an agency. So we feel the pain you feel, we can relate. In fact, like a lot of folks tell us, like there's a DNA of being an agency reflected in a lot of what we have built in our product. So that's one part. The other part is, for 10 years prior to starting this business, by the way, for those of you that don't know me, I'm one of the founders and CEO of Intentwise. I live in San Diego. If you're around, love to meet. But my background prior to starting this business was I ran the data and performance marketing teams at Orbitz, which is an online travel company. And it's a public company, so a lot of scrutiny on what we do on a quarterly basis. So I've seen and lived through a lot of data challenges, and also lived through, what do you do to make the most of all this data, right? So that's the background from which I'm coming. With that, I'm going to start with a bit of a rhetorical question, right? So there's a bunch of you here. In some form or fashion, you are thinking about reporting and analytics. This is a question you should answer for yourself, right? Which is reporting for your business an operational necessity only? Maybe sometimes an operational headache? Or is this a real competitive differentiator which can actually drive growth of the business? I have a point of view on that, and I'll share in a moment. But I'm going to frame at least my point of view in this context. Yesterday, my wife and I, sitting in 2 separate parts of the house, were shopping for a ceiling fan because temperatures have skyrocketed in San Diego. We are in a slightly newer house, don't have fans. We're shopping around. And I'm just watching, like I was kind of introspecting what it takes to buy a product, all the factors that influence a product. And so on the left is a list of all the different things, all acting at once, influencing a product's performance. And because of this, we at Intentwise have so many conversations with advertisers or brands on a regular basis, even like earlier this week and last week, where a brand or an advertiser or seller, there's certain things happening to their product performance, but they don't exactly know why, because just so many factors are at play all at once. And there are, for vast majority of sellers and brands, there are what I call performance blind spots. And this is why I think reporting and analytics is a massive opportunity for agencies, especially as Amazon and Walmart share more and more data. There is a huge void that I believe agencies with existing client relationships can really step into, which is why I would encourage all of us to think about reporting not as an operational necessity alone. Of course, you need it to support your operations, but also the strategic asset a competitive differentiator. That's how I would think about reporting and analytics. Even though some of you may be facing a lot of pain and struggling with the minutia today, I think this is the potential that getting the right reporting and analytics infrastructure, and that too quickly, can do to your business. In fact, I know a number of agencies that have raised private equity capital or gotten acquired. Almost every one of them has a reporting and analytics story to tell. They have a tool, they have a name for a tool. Whether that is to convince clients, whether they convince investors, that's a path a lot of the scaled agencies have taken. And so should everybody that is in this, so should every other agency in the business. With that, let me start peeling some layers. I keep using the word data, but there's tons of data, right? There's tons of data sources, but it's always helpful to put a simple frame on what types of data are we talking about. For us, we bucket all the data sets into 5, and we think you need these 5 pieces of data to fully understand any particular product's entire product performance. Okay. And I keep saying product, but aggregate a bunch of products, you get the account, right? So these are the 5 data sets that you have to have at your disposal and connect it together to get a full picture of any product's performance. Let me unpack what each of these things are. Right? We all know ads. Ads is sponsored ads, DSP, and now on retail, it's organic sales, inventory levels, pricing, promotions, buy box. And by the way, these are all examples. Organic ranking, BSR, so on and so forth. Competitive intelligence. We all know from an Amazon perspective, this is a zero-sum game. One seller loses, the other seller wins from a shopper's perspective, right? So it is important to have a pulse on what is happening from a share of voice, digital shelf perspective, right? That's competitive intelligence. Shopper insights, this is relatively new. This is where Amazon Marketing Cloud has a ton of insights that did not exist before. Things like what is upper funnel marketing doing to your lower funnel marketing? Are there shoppers that are buying your products but not opting into subscribe and save? Are there products that get you more new to brand customers than others? So should you look at ACoS targets on the products differently? All that falls under shopper insights. But those 4 data sets are external to the brand. But what is internal to the brand, which is the 5th bucket, is every brand or seller has a whole bunch of products. They have their own product categorizations. In fact, oftentimes they are running their businesses along product category lines. So you have to have that data ingested, that categorization ingested in whatever reports and dashboards and analysis you do. If you're omni-channel, you want to be able to reconcile product IDs between Amazon and Walmart or any other channel. As a brand, you have product level costs. Without that metric, you do not know how to get to a view that gives you profitability. So I can go on and on and on, but I think this is a simple frame to keep in mind in terms of the different data sets that have to be pulled together to get a comprehensive view of what is happening in the channel. Again, just a quick reminder, if you have any questions on this, feel free to drop in the Q&A box and the chat. I just saw that the number of participants has shot up since I kickstarted the session. Just FYI, I'll send you the recording. I'll also have some time at the end for Q&A. But feel free to drop in, ideally in the Q&A, so we can keep track of it more effectively if you have any questions. All right, let's keep going. This story is good. I think we can all buy into this. But what gets in the way of collecting all that data, stitching it together, and having this amazing data infrastructure? So let me talk through the difficulties today. Number one, there are just so many data sources, and each one you have to collect data differently. For example, getting data from Seller Central, you download or call APIs every day at a certain time and get data for the previous day. That is very different from getting data from Amazon Marketing Stream, which is pushing data to you on an hourly basis, or Rapid Retail Analytics, if you're a vendor, that is pushing data to you on an hourly basis. So those are examples of how, A, there are multiple data sources, and B, the way you collect data from each is very different. And I'll unpack this further in a later slide. But the second thing is, it's one thing to collect your data. It's another to keep that data error-free. There are so many ways in which data goes wrong that maintaining data quality is actually a continuous investment. It is not one and done, right? Every day, somebody has to be paying attention to data quality. Number 3, You can collect data, but every client of yours runs their business a certain way. So you have to be able to ingest their nuances, whether it's product categorization, product costs. Some of the larger brands may have sub brands. How do you segregate your data by those dimensions? Becomes the other problem. Number four, which is fragmented data and slow dashboards. I don't think anybody on this call has not experienced, there's probably no one on this call that has not experienced this problem. You've got a beautiful dashboard, you've built it out, but then over time it becomes really slow. It takes painfully long to launch those dashboards. Often what happens is that it happens because that dashboard is touching 10, 15, 20 different tables and data sets. And the more data sets a dashboard touches, the slower they get. And then the last but not least, if you're an agency that has scaled up a little bit, you almost don't have a choice but to have reasonable looking reporting exposed to your clients. So pretty much a client reporting portal, a reporting portal that handles data security where one client doesn't see another client's data, and a reporting portal that looks new age, right? That looks like the dashboards are not from the 1990s. That's non-trivial. And so when you put all these together, this is what slows you down in solving your reporting and analytics problems. I'm going to spend the rest of the session talking about how to best address them. But I've got a couple of questions or chats here, I think. There's a question here saying, how can we get started with AMC and get access to data? If you have a DSP instance already, this is just one request away. Feel free to message me after. We can get you started on AMC if you don't already have one. Let me take another question here. Will you share this deck? Yes, we will share out the deck. All right, let's keep moving. Before I dive into how do we solve all those problems, when I look at the agencies that we work with, they kind of fall into three buckets. On the left is like early stage agencies, perhaps not scaled up too much, but your reporting practically is Google Sheets or Excel oftentimes. And then maybe you have subscribed to a third-party tool that gives you just canned dashboards, the same dashboards for all your clients. You're not really housing your data in your system, right? It's just still Excel. And this is another thing I think most of us are familiar with these big, large Google Sheets or Excel sheets that keep growing and growing and growing. And one fine day, an employee that knows that sheet very well leaves, and you're kind of stuck, right? So that's just early stage. That's something everyone goes through. That's step one. Step two is when you've got to a bit of scale, you're focused on your operations, you're starting to, and you as an agency have figured out your unique value proposition to your clients. You may be the agency that is so focused on profitability that that's your differentiation. Or you may be an agency that is so focused on growth and that's your differentiation. But that leads to your agency specific dashboards, however you get them built. Right? You're also now starting to store your data. You're probably using one of those industry standard reporting tools, Looker Studio or Power BI or Tableau, one of those guys talking to that database, and you've got some sort of reporting in place. That's step two. And the most mature of agencies are at a place where they have a reporting portal that clients log into. For their top tier clients, they actually deliver custom reports, right, that are part of that strengthening of relationship and building that entrenchment with the client. Some of the agencies we work with where we pipe data to them have built their own applications for reporting. They've done that too. It's also a stage where clients are asking you a lot of ad hoc questions and you want the ability to be able to do ad hoc analysis that no standard report or dashboard will solve. But that's the progression. And today's conversation is about how do we get you to accelerate that path, not over 10 years, but perhaps in weeks or months. Right? That is the conversation I want to have with you. Let's talk about how. Right? In order to accelerate that path upwards, which I assume anyone here wants to do, right? Who wouldn't, especially to scale the business? There are two key enablers for this. Number one is the strategic aspect, which is, I call it a roadmap. It is simply a roadmap of questions. When I say questions, it's just a list of questions that you, the agency, find important, whether that's for internal use or to expose to clients. Because that list of questions, and I'll talk more about how to frame these questions, but that list of questions will drive all the choices you need to make in building out your reporting infrastructure. So that's number one, step number one. But once you have that, it acts like a guide, right? Then there's tactics. And with any reporting infrastructure for an agency, I'll go bottom up here. There are 4 components. You have to find a way to collect all the data you need. You have to find a way to enrich that data with your client's very specific metadata. Again, product groupings, product costs, things like that. Then you've got the visualization and reporting aspect. That's where reporting tools come in. And then there's the client access component. These are the 4 pieces that make up a solid reporting infrastructure, right? But none of this is all that useful if it is not guided by a list of questions that you, the agency, has defined to be important, whether it's to make the running of your internal teams efficient or to make the storytelling to your clients differentiated and unique, right? That list of questions is super important. Now, how do you frame this list of questions? By the way, when I think list of questions, I'm not thinking a 50-page document. No, I'm thinking a half a page document that has maybe 5 important questions. So to give you a bit of a frame around how to think about questions, I bucket them into 3. There is the operational questions, which is you are the agency owner or you're a team member within the agency. You want certain standard views that will give you a quick pulse of how the business is going, right? And maybe some problem and surface some problem areas. And I've given some examples here. If you're an agency with 50 clients, you may want to view an all accounts view that has spends, monthly budgets, ACOS, stockers, and some trend views so you can quickly spot problem accounts, right? Or if I were to drill further, you may want to have a view that shows profitability by ASIN or even product category in a given account for all of your accounts. And by the way, I keep saying profitability because the industry is at a state where a lot of advertisers and brands, profitability is really top of mind. For many brands, like private equity groups have invested in them over the last 2 to 3 year period. There's a lot of scrutiny around bottom line margins. So I'm going to keep using the term profitability a lot. And what I found is constructing profitability view in a way that each of your clients can consume, also in a way that your internal teams can look at and see if, for example, ad spend is aligned with profitability or not. I mean, it's non-trivial. But anyway, these are all examples. So operational is just let me understand the business. These charts will describe what happened to the business. Okay. The second one is diagnostics. This is actually perhaps, super critical in the sense that every agency has run through scenarios and constantly runs into scenarios where the client is unhappy about a cost going up or year over year top line not being great or whatever the scenario is. If you do not have a solid process and a nice set of views and dashboards, what happens is your team members are running around trying to figure out answers. Every time this comes out, they do something different. It's not a scalable process. It's an anxiety causing process. It's not, it's easy to not look like you are leading in the eyes of the client. When I say diagnostics, I'm talking about those 2 to 3 things that have to be automated and operationalized that will reduce the anxiety among team members, improve employee retention, also improve client retention, right? That's what I mean by diagnostics. And I've got some examples here. And the final one is strategic. When I say strategic, I'm talking about let's talk about account audits. Vast majority of agencies win their business by doing account audits. The funny thing is, you get the account, you sign up an account doing an amazing audit. Often you lose an account because somebody else did an amazing audit 6 months later. A lot of times, the same audit that you did to win an account is actually not automated, and your team is not doing self audits because you haven't automated them and scaled them internally. So that's an example. Can you automate your account audits in a way that it helps you in all aspects of the customer journey, in prospecting phase, when you're servicing them, and potentially even to upsell in the future? Automating QBRs. I mean, these are all just examples under the strategic bucket. But I want to reiterate that this is not an exercise that should take weeks and months. This is like couple of days, get the key people together. I say, grab a pizza. In an hour, you can frame these questions because they're all things you face today already within the team. But once you have this, which is a half a page or a full page of questions, that's when we can then talk about step 2, which is, okay, how do you build these things? And I go back to the 4 components that make up your reporting stack. The number one mistake to avoid, and I've seen many agencies make this mistake, and we have helped them unwind things like that, is there are parts of this four-piece puzzle that is just not your core competence, and don't even touch it. And I'll talk about what those are, but I'll go bottom up. Okay. Let's talk about data collection. Let me frame the problem around data collection. Here's kind of broadly four different ways in which we collect data today, right? For agencies. There is the batch data pull on a daily basis, and you can see the data sources on the right. There's the hourly push that we have to sit and listen and consume, which is examples are Marketing Stream, Rapid Retail Analytics. Then there is Amazon Marketing Cloud, which is fundamentally very different from pulling data from a database. It doesn't work like that. The API infrastructure is just very different for it. And then lastly, you've got share of voice, search result data, shelf intelligence. That is like getting data from search results on Amazon. That's a very different process of collecting data. There is so much complexity. And by the way, I'm just talking about collection. I am not even talking about what do you do when there are errors in data. Today, we collect data for about 4,000 accounts. There's so many issues that we run into. For example, like you can call a certain report, download a data for a certain report from Seller Central, but it'll say success, but the data hasn't come through. So you've got to have automatic detection of those things to find the errors, do something about it, either retry or maybe even raise a ticket with Amazon. The reason for saying all this is one of the candidates where you, the agency, should not be investing time building data collection infrastructure. Right? This is where people like us are making massive investments with a 20 people dev team because we can amortize that cost across a lot of agencies. So this is one of those candidates where this is not your core competence. Don't touch it. Please buy it. Right? The second component, which is enrichment and organization. So by enrichment, I mean, you can read the text here, but you have to have a mechanism to combine your brand's very specific things. Like today, I know many of you maintain product categorization in a Google Sheet somewhere. You maintain what are brand versus what are brand terms for a given brand maybe in a Google Sheet somewhere. But managing that data in a way that they flow into all of the reports, because you want to show advertising performance, for example, by brand versus non-brand. You want to show full funnel performance, advertising to retail, to ACOS, to tacos by product categories. So that's what I mean by enrichment. Some of the brands you work with are going to be in multiple geographies, and there's a need for currency normalization. How are you going to convert currency on the fly into those reports? So you need a pipe of currency conversion data that has to be part of your data set. Only then can you execute and build that report that is automated. Right? That's what I mean by enrichment. Organization. This is where I cannot tell you the number of times we run into a situation where an agency has a dashboard. It is solving a very specific use case, but that dashboard is touching 20, 25 different tables underneath. And that dashboard either comes to a crawl or you often run into errors, right? So for example, let's take a simple use case where, you want to get a 360-degree view of products performance, advertising performance, overall sales performance, ACOS, tacos, buy box, and a bunch of other things. On the left are the different data sources from which you have to get data. In the middle is all the reports you have to pull together and build this dashboard. Let's say you built a Google Data Studio, Looker Studio dashboard, connecting to all these tables underneath that are sitting somewhere. Problem is, the more tables you connect to, the slower the dashboards get. This is why there's a real need at the database level to organize the data in a way that supports rapid dashboard load times and faster analytics. And I'll talk about how we are solving the problem. But I wanted to give you a bit of a technical context around why this organization is important. It is important to have this, otherwise you're going to have slow load times. Also, the next time you want a new dashboard, it'll take you forever if the data is not better organized underneath. But anyway, let's come back to, okay, here's the stack. You're the agency. Hey, what should I do? What should I build, not build, right? My recommendation is the following. Data collection and connection and enrichment of data, please do not do this, okay? I've seen too many agencies go down this path. A year goes by, you're burning your hard-earned margins. You just do not make progress. And there's also constant upkeep. So these are the two things I strongly recommend you don't do. Now, there are some minority of agencies that have a big engineering team that have already done this, I get that, no problem. But for the vast majority of you, don't do this. Rely on a third party. This is a plug for Intentwise, but us or anybody else who can deliver really high quality data pipes into a database or your own database, right? Uh, that is like recommendation number one. The top two layers, which is visualization. So this is where, again, if you're an agency that knows Looker Studio reasonably well and somebody else is collecting all the data, putting it in a database, you can go build and modify certain Looker Studio dashboards if you wanted to, right? Or Tableau or Power BI. So this is where I think the decision can be specific to you. If you think you have the chops and the skills, that can go pretty quickly. So this could be build versus buy. I don't have any particular recommendation. And even the client reporting tools like Tableau and Power BI inherently come with the ability to give access to clients. Okay. So you can go down that path. Now, the only issue there is that the Power BIs and Tableaus in today's age are not those slick looking dashboards, right? If you want to really deliver like this amazing user experience, you're going to have to go past those standard tools, right? We have some agencies to whom we pipe data, but they're building out a complete software stack to make visualizations look very compelling. So some of them have taken that path. Many of them have taken the path of, look, let me use Power BI. I'm going to share part of that with my clients. That's fine too. So that's where I think the top two layers can be build versus buy. But the bottom two, please do not build from scratch. It's going to take you forever and it never stops. So I know we're about 30 minutes in. I also want to dive into how we are solving the problem. But so just some important points of note for the agencies, right? Forget all the technical nuances. Your roadmap is perhaps the most critical asset you have. Because once you have that, either you can hold your internal teams accountable or external teams accountable, but make consistent, steady progress, checking the box on that list of reports. Now, if you want to strategize and need help framing these questions, I'm here, happy to help. I'll leave my contact information. We can connect because we do have a vantage point of seeing just lots and lots of organizations doing very different things. So happy to share our perspective. The other thing that is important around data is that it is actually important to keep data awareness very high. What I mean by that is when you have a new data source, such as Amazon Marketing Cloud, you should get your team members to go get certified ASAP because, like, for example, in particular, in the case of Amazon Marketing Cloud, the certification process actually is pretty solid, where if you get through the certification, it may take 2 to 3 attempts. But when you get through the certification, you actually now understand what is possible. Then you can have the right conversations with the clients. You can have the right asks of your reporting and analytics partner or an internal team. But that awareness is critical. A lot of times, if you don't understand the data set, then you don't know what can be done with it, right? So that's important. SQL skills. If you get to a place of starting to store data in a database, then having SQL skills, SQL stands for structured query language. That's a language with which you can get at the database and extract data out. Extremely valuable. And by the way, those two bullet points about AMC certification, SQL skills. Intentwise, if you go to our website and the resources link, there is an agency learning hub page where you should get your teams to go look at it. There are free resources to go learn SQL. There's resources to help your understanding of Amazon Marketing Cloud. I'd encourage you to go there and hang out there as much as possible. The other point I've made already is don't burn your time on non-core components, especially data collection, data enrichment, data organization. These are things you do not want to do. By the way, Vaibhav on my team has shared links in the chat. I think Vaibhav, these are just going to me. Let me just repost the link to the Learning Hub. There you go. It's in the chat, everyone. The other, last couple of points, boiling the ocean and investing lots and lots of time before you see light at the end of the tunnel. Bad idea. I think you have to take an iterative execution approach and make quarterly progress. And then last but not least, I fundamentally believe that if approached right, if you have the right roadmap of questions and get help where necessary, you can turn reporting and analytics into a real differentiator and a growth driver for your agency. I'm happy to take questions here before I dive into the next phase, which is I'm going to talk about how is Intentwise actually solving each of these problems. Perhaps do a quick demo of our product too. But yeah, any questions so far? A couple of questions on AMC. I think around AMC, if you have an ad partner that you work with, they can help get you AMC instances created. If not, we today can help you get AMC instances created for all your clients, no problem. So feel free to reach out to me. Or just go to the website and reach out to us that way, no problem. All right, so switching gears, I think the next few minutes, I'm going to do a quick deep dive on what we are doing to solve these problems, these 4 problems, which is data collection, enrichment, visualization, and client access. I'm going to share our application and do a live demo of how we are solving and attacking this problem. So this is Intentwise Analytics Cloud. This is our reporting and analytics stack for agencies. And remember, I talked about that path of evolution. Our singular goal is to accelerate you down that path and take to that highest level of maturity as quickly as possible, right? Let me show you how this works. So this is Intentwise Analytics Cloud. I talked about data collection. So we have already built data collection infrastructure for all of these data sources. So sponsor ads, seller central, vendor central, Walmart ads, Stream, Rapid Retail Analytics. We have an exhaustive list of sources from which we can collect data. So you don't have to collect data collection infrastructure. All you have to do is activate the data sources and then connect your accounts. That's all you need to do. That's step number 1. Step number 2, again, you'll come to a choice where you'll say, look, I have an internal database because I'm using it for many different things. Why don't you pipe all the data you collected into my database? So whether that's a Snowflake or a Redshift or a Postgres or whatever, right? You can choose a data destination. But let's just say that you don't have a data warehouse in place. You just want to use a reporting tool like Power BI, no problem. We can store the data. It is your data. And you can connect any of your reporting tools to our database, right? So we solve the data collection problem for you out of the box. If you activate accounts today, you'll start seeing data tomorrow. By the way, as we do this, the unsexy part of this business is you do run into data issues all the time. So one of the headaches you don't have to deal with is looking out for those errors, retrying, getting that data, or raising tickets with Amazon and getting those resolved. All those things we handle behind the scenes, right? That's part of data collection. There's a question about what is e-commerce graph. I'll get to that in a moment. Just give me 1 second here. So we talked about data enrichment, right? Rather than maintain product groupings and a bunch of other things in spreadsheets somewhere, we give you native mechanisms within the platform to maintain product categories. You can assign many attributes for each category. One of them can be product tech categories. You can even update unit cost at a product level. Why is this important? Well, this is important to go construct that profitability view that we all show desire, right? So we are allowing you to manage all the underlying metadata in a scalable manner in one place. Brand terms is another example. So once you insert brand terms for each account, every keyword automatically has a tag on it that says brand or non-brand. Every search term has it too. What that does is the build out of reports downstream just become a whole lot simpler, and you have a lot less maintenance overhead and headache. Labels. So we allow you to dynamically define labels and tags. So you can, in fact, you can say, look, all campaigns that have such and such text, I want this label assigned. Why is this important? Well, you can use these labels to do reporting downstream. Okay? So this is what I mean by enrichment of data. Okay? Let me go back to my connections. So you've got data destinations, data sources, and then there's this concept. I talked about organization, right? Remember, I was talking about to construct a single product level view, you have to touch so many different reports and tables. Well, we have done the hard yards, and not only do we collect source data, we also reorganize the data into a proprietary data model called e-commerce graph, where I'm going to give you a glimpse of a single table called product summary that gives you all of the metadata for a single product, even cross-channel. So you've got advertising data, you've got organic sales data, you've got BSR, content data, all of it in one view. So you don't have to build reports that touch 20 different things that are slow to perform and hard to maintain. We have done the hard yards for you. And by the way, this same e-commerce graph also has things like currency conversion, where is currency exchange rate. So for all of your marketplaces in, that is part of the data set. You don't have to go elsewhere to go find it. And one of the things we find is an agency comes to us and say, hey, I want all this data collected. We collect all the data, but we also give them this e-commerce graph. 80 to 90% of agencies that have come to us end up using the e-commerce graph, and they use the source tables a lot less because it's just, we have done the hard yards. You don't have to deal with it. So that's the enrichment and organization. Here's something we released very recently. Oh, by the way, actually, before I talk about this, let me talk about visualizations. So let's just say you are a Google Data Studio shop or a Power BI shop, right? We have built-in templates that you can activate right away for all kinds of use cases. So advertising plus organic sales for sellers, DSP overview, advertising audits, rapid retail and marketing stream views, customer lifetime values, subscribe and save. These are all canned pre-existing dashboards, templates for any of the reporting tools you currently use internally. So if you are an agency that has the model of saying, look, I'm a Power BI shop and I'm just going to connect to this data store that Intentwise is populating, then you can take one of these templates and activate them right away. And again, this is our effort to shrink your time to build compelling reports. And then last but not least, when it comes to client access, this is actually a relatively new capability we just launched, is the concept of embedded dashboards. Here you say, look, activate embedded dashboards for me. By the way, I'm talking about white labeled client facing portals that can be up and running in minutes for you, right? So once you say activate insights, and then you have an insights tab activated for you, you go to white label settings. You, the agency, can configure a subdomain, and on your DNS or domain settings, there's a way to configure this where when a client goes to that subdomain, they're seeing your reports. That's your reporting portal. We can help with the technical aspects of it. You upload a logo. You even pick a theme that you desire in terms of how the report should look. That's how you set up your white label options. You then go to my dashboards. There's one dashboard activated here, but I can go to add dashboards, and there's a library of dashboards here I can choose from. By the way, if you don't see a dashboard you like, or you want a customization, you can request custom dashboards. This is another thing where you don't have to find resources elsewhere and all of that. We've got both the SaaS platform and a services layer to build things for you, and we can get done within days because we have an analytics studio internally that dramatically accelerates the pace with which we can build out dashboards. But as an agency owner, you can come and say, look, I've got vendor central overview, but I also want to activate this DSP overview dashboard for some of my clients. And I hit continue. I then can select a client user. I can either add a new user or select an existing user. Right? Once I do that, I hit save, and that's it. So this new dashboard shows up in the My Dashboard section. This is you, the admin, and you have a user management to see who are all the users that have access to all these dashboards. You can manage this very seamlessly. Now, if I'm a client user that I just got access to these dashboards, what is my experience? So I come into this URL that's you defined, right? Analytics.agent, whatever you're doing, analytics.youragencyname.com. I log in and my view here. So yeah, I see my two dashboards that the agency activated for me. I can drill into one of them, which is like vendor analysis, vendor advertising and organic sales. And here's the dashboard, right? Please note that if you don't like some of the widgets, they need to be customized. We can do that for you, no problem. But the idea here is you can stand up client-facing portals, activate a number of dashboards, get some custom ones built, and deliver a lot more new age looking reporting and analytics experience to your clients. And all that within days, not months and years. And your client can just download this into a PDF, a beautiful looking PDF comes out. We're also adding more and more capabilities like scheduling these reports and things like that. But in essence, what we have done here is we have solved the data collection problem out of the box, enrichment and organization. Depending on the path you want to take, we have mechanisms to accelerate your build out of reports and dashboards. And we have also solved for client access that is secure and new age looking. And all that can happen in a very, very short time frame. And the point here is we want to get you, no matter where you are, we want to get you to be right here in a matter of days and weeks. All right. I'm going to pause. I'm going to leave my email in the chat if you want to reach out to me. Again, if you're anyone here attending Accelerate, please say yes in the chat. And our booth number is 202. There's a lot of topics we can cover, including Amazon Marketing Cloud, but we'd love to see you there. I just shared my contact info. Let me stop presenting and and I'm open to questions. So feel free to, drop in a question in the chat or the Q&A. And yes, we will send out the recording after we are done here. All right, there's a question about what reporting tools to use. Good question. I think when it comes to reporting tools, like I put them in 3 buckets. One is, I'm sure there is like SaaS tools where you put your credit card, you get these reports that you can use for internal purposes. It's the same view for all clients. And I think they serve a purpose, and that's a fine way to go. But if you want to use one of the industry standard reporting tools, it's like the most common ones we see are Looker Studio, Power BI, and Tableau. Tableau and Power BI just have this added benefit of being able to activate a portal for your clients. And then one dashboard can be given access to lots and lots of accounts and our clients. And when they log in, they only see the data they're supposed to see. The challenge with Looker Studio is Looker Studio does not have the ability to allow multi-client access to the same dashboard. So you're having to make copies. But the benefit of Looker Studio is it's free. So there's pluses and minuses in terms of industry standard tools. This is also why we introduced our own embedded solution so that you don't have to deal with the complexities of yet another reporting tool. But hey, if you have resources and you've been down that path for a while now, it's a fine path to stay on. There's many other reporting tools like Domo and whatnot, but like if you look at presence in the industry, like Looker Studio, Tableau, Power BI are perhaps the most ubiquitous. All right. There's a question, how do you handle complexity? How do you handle complexity around data sources? Does a particular report only use queues, or can it mix queues for some, use campaigns for others? I mean, there is definitely complexity around each of the reports. Like I'll tell you a common complexity around it is there's some reports where you can only request the download every 4 hours. So for whatever reason, if things go wrong in that window, you got to wait for 4 hours before you ask again. There's a lot of complexity around reporting, but each report has its schema. Part of the job is not just collect, but because the grains of data are different in each, how do you join them together to get a singular view is a problem that requires both the understanding of data and the understanding of domain, right? That's the only way you can get through it. An example of importance of domain knowledge, a lot of people touching Amazon data don't understand the concept of click attributed revenue in ads. Meaning that I could have bought a product today, but if I clicked on an ad 3 days ago, my purchase is reported 3 days ago under ads and reported for today in organic sales. Those are the types of complexities that like you just have to have the domain expertise to know when you join these data sets together. There's a question here saying, hey, can we get access to your demo dashboards? Like happy to do a demo and do a deep dive with you. I'll have one of my clients reach out for sure. One of my team members reach out to set up some time with you. Also, while you're here, please feel free to share any commentary about how you felt about the webinar. Good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. We'd love to take the feedback. Also call out any specific things you might have liked or you're taking away from this. That'll be incredibly valuable for us. We're always trying to refine our content. Also, if you don't already follow our newsletter, we put out a lot of educational content for you, so please do so. Vaibhav, can you please paste the link to the newsletter sign up as well? Thank you. One of the things we'll do next is perhaps start to get into specific use cases. I mean, the common ones, ACOS versus stock hose, profitability, inventory versus ad spend, those types of things. I think we'll start to get deeper and deeper into the use cases we support in the next set of webinars. There's a suggestion here to be doing like paid fixed sessions. Love the suggestion. We'll definitely take that into consideration. I think the important thing here, if nothing else, the single most important takeaway I want to leave you with is make sure you have that roadmap of questions, because if you don't have that, all the downstream activity just doesn't go in the direction you ever desired. So please frame those questions first. Super happy to help you with constructing them if you need that assistance. Okay, I think that's the end of it. I think we've addressed all the questions, and Again, send me a note if something comes to mind, sreenath@intentwise.com. Thank you, everybody, for joining. If you're attending Accelerate, we'll be at booth 202. Love to hand you some goodies. Swing by. But until next time, take care of yourself and safe travels if you're heading to Seattle next week.